10 cards that you're going to want to keep an eye on and maybe decide to pick up for this block. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more honest content. Now, number 1 on our list here is going to be Extra Foolish Burial. Now you're like, really? Like, Extra Foolish Burial, Robbie? That card has some devastating downsides. Well, here's the thing. The OCG recently started playing this because the Beasted cards require a monster on the field in order to special summon and interrupt. So the OCG started to look at Extra Foolish Burial here as a means to bypass the requirements of having like Ghost Reaper or something like that, because both require a monster. So you drop the Kit of Galos with the Extra Foolish Burial, which will trigger the mill effect, which actually ends up working to your favor. As long as within that span of mill cards, you're able to start like a fusion, start combo, as we're going to say here. Yes, that's what you really want to start to see here. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, I think that Extra Foolish Burial, just the supers to have 1 or 2 really to mess around with to see if this idea holds true, come to the TCG. Next up is going to be Dispel. Actually, this is just going to be spell and trap destruction in general right now. Now, the entire community's been up in arms about Mystic Mine. You know, Mystic Mine, Mystic Mine, Mystic Mine. Community's like, just draw the out. So I wanted to just include Dispel in here. It's like the perfect old school card. The disenchanting effect to any spell card can be yours. Alright? But jokes aside here, Mystic Mine has reached the devastating point of the format where people are like, just, you have to play the out, man. Like, the out is, I tell you, it's not Twister, it's not Twin Twister, it's not Mystical Space Typhoon, it's Dispel. So, all jokes aside, focus on some sort of spell and trap destruction if you're planning on playing competitively anytime soon, because that's where you're going to get the most of your value here, ladies and gentlemen, for the anti-Mystic Mine run. Next up is Soul Crossing. The reason why I want to mention this card right now is it has one of the most interesting effects in the game. During the main phase, so either player's turn, after this effect resolves, tribute summon 1 Divine Beast monster. When you do, you can tribute monsters your opponent controls, even if you do not control them. But if you tribute summon this way, apply this effect till the end of your next turn. After this card resolves, you can only activate 1 card or effect per turn, not counting the effects of Divine Beast monsters. It's actually, we were looking up how much these were. You can get a play set of these for $2. If anything ever actually happens to Egyptian God support that would push this card over the edge, I would consider this a very, very interesting penny slug. I always see like OCG list out here that give this card a shot, and if your opponent commits too much on like a local level, you just devastate them, man. Like, this card just cleans up an entire field, and I mean, most decks can't negate a spell card, interestingly enough. Next up is going to be Sprite Elf. Now, the reason why I specifically mentioned Sprite Elf here is the fact that this card still is made through 2 monsters, including a level 2, rank 2, or link 2. Well, as long as you can meet the requirements to get to a rank 2 or a link 2, this is easy real estate. Yeah, it can't be link summoned the turn that it's link summoned. Who cares about that? The thing that you care about here is the fact that basically monsters it points to cannot be targeted, alright, with card effects, and then during the main phase, you can revive a level 2, and then if your opponent controls a monster, congratulations, you get to bring back a rank 2 or a link 2. In some of the larger combo decks out here, outside of Sprite, like, this card is just a monster. Alright, so this is going to be one of those things that people are going to be looking at here in the future as just an insane extender, an insane protector. Just, honestly, it's an insane card overall for what it brings to the table for these archetypes. Alright, next up here, it's going to be Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. Now, do I really need to tell you that when you start looking at like some of these scarier matchups, for example, you know, Sprite hitting, you know, the Gigantic, I mean, honestly, the real purpose of Ghost Reaper is to combine it with, you know, the Beasted cards so that you have a larger chance to hit those power cards from your opponent. I mean, Ghost Reapering away a Kit of Galos, for example, in the Tier Elements Mirror, single-handedly can win you a game. Like, you should know little interactions like that. Like, Ghost Reaper coming up here is going to just be one of those cards that people are going to be like, yeah, you're right. Like, this is actually kind of insane. in terms of like just the overall value that you get with it, ladies and gentlemen. It seems to be my favorite phrase here. The ulti's coming out soon, so maybe you'll want to wait for those, but make sure you have a playset of these just in case. Next up is going to be triple tactical talents, or triple tack talents. The card that's literally choose one of 3 banned card effects: Pot of Greed, Change of Heart, or the rip a card away from your opponent. Now, the reason why I specifically bring this up is this card's not getting any cheaper. All of the current already existing reprint versions of this have been going up. I do suspect there will be another reprint somewhere along the way here, but if you're planning on looking at like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh anytime soon, depending on what you want to build, this might be something that you definitely end up needing. But I think right now that a lot of the competitive players have looked at this card. It is one of the more powerful cards in current era Yu-Gi-Oh! So I just wanted to warn everybody here that I don't see tack talents getting any cheaper anytime soon. So just kind of be aware of that, all right? For a card that's as powerful as talents, it really is crazy. Now I want to mention Cyblocker here because I saw a couple of side decks out of the OCG recently that started to play Cyblocker. The once per turn declare a card name. Cards with that name, alright, and their effects cannot be used till the end of your opponent's turn. Now the cool thing with this is you can change this every turn, alright? Like you're not locked behind, oh, I declared this, no, I'm stuck with this. No, that's the thing that makes this better than like Prohibition, for example. But having to get the body onto the field is a little bit harder than it seems, because this is one of those monsters that, of course, you have to draw, you have to see it along the way in order to capitalize and see it. But for a side deck card, I feel like in the right situation that this card comes up, it can really devastate the opponent. So yes, I honestly, there are plenty of cheap Cyblockers on the market. I'd make sure I had a playset of these. They shouldn't cost too much of an arm and a leg out here for you to be able to have these. Next up is going to be Ultimate Rare, Fallen of Albaz. Now, the reason why I bring this one up, sometimes certain Ultimate Rares just hit such low prices out here that I take a look at them and I go, wow, you know, like this is at the price point that I would consider picking up these just to have them. And when a card hits that $25 to $30 mark, you know, it's always interesting. I do see, as of making this video, that they've gone up a little bit. I mean, once again, a card like Albaz that acts as like a extension point of the deck. Yeah, while Despia hasn't really seen a lot of crazy play as of late, ladies and gentlemen, it's still one of those decks that you got to be aware of. It's one of those decks that, I mean, it's a free upgrade piece effectively, but it's very cheap, looks nice. It's definitely something that if I already have Despia, if I wanted something a little bit nicer for my deck, I'd consider picking up. Next up is the Spellbook Draw Package. Now you're like, wait a minute, really? Well, the reason why I bring this up was a few of the Puri builds in the OCG are playing the Spellbook Blue Boy and a lot of the other cards as filtering options to get through the deck. Because, I mean, you need to be able to get to those extra Puri cards in order to do what Puri does, alright? Which is start building up those large amounts of Exceed materials underneath your cards and then doing the devastating effects to your opponent, alright? You're baking one big stack. It should very much remind you of Zodiac in a way that the deck functions. So that's one big thing that I really just want to mention here in terms of like upcoming stuff. I don't even think we have an ETA right now for the Puri archetype in the TCG. Probably 2023 at the rate we're going. But something to really consider is just that little spellbook package that you can pick up, have for yourself, and be good to go. Alright? It's literally free real estate, everybody. And then last but not least, I mention this every video, every time we do these, it's going to be Naturia cards. The Naturia trap card, the negators, there is future Naturia stuff coming out here that puts Naturia on the map as a relatively fun deck. Now, when I say relatively fun deck, this is going to be some interesting little interactions out here that you're going to want to find yourself having just to be able to mess around with in the future. It's what makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Fun is, oh boy, I can set up negates, laugh at my opponent. Sounds like modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! Really in a nutshell. But yeah, the new Naturia stuff actually is quite good. So what do you guys think about this list? Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patron. Ugh.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.